Welcome, Queen. If you've ever set a boundary, watched someone ignore it, and then felt internal hesitation about enforcing it, stay with me. Because the hardest part of conflict is not setting your boundaries or your standards. It's about tolerating the discomfort after it's violated. And today, we're going to talk about why setting consequences feels uncomfortable and why avoiding that moment quietly trains people to ignore you. So typically, what happens is this: you set the standard, you tell the person exactly what the standard is, they test the standard, and in that moment, you feel tension rise, you worry about how they will perceive you, and then you decide that just maybe you should let it go this one last time. And that moment changes everything. Because that moment decides everything. Not the conversation, but the test. The test of will you hold to the boundary that you set for you. So, what is this discomfort that you feel actually about? It's typically about an identity shift, because now in your mind, enforcing consequences when people violate your boundaries, when they disrespect your standards, means that they may likely see you differently. And so internally, you are typically wrestling with being seen as different, as serious, as less accommodating, and a person who is typically not going to negotiate, or it's going to simply be harder to negotiate with when it comes to certain things. And so for many high functioning women, for many high achieving women, especially Black professional women, they feel that tension, and that identity shift is uncomfortable for them. And so instead of standing on it, they retreat from it. And there's a cost when we retreat. In that moment, when we choose to retreat, what happens is that person learns that your standard is not firm, it's not structural, it's actually situational. And if it's situational, then that means it's negotiable. And since they can negotiate it, they know that they can disregard the fact that you said that you have a standard, because your standard is likely not going to be enforced by you. And so the cycle of them disregarding your standard or your boundary, it continues. And it's not because they're a bad person or evil person. It's simply typically because they are allowed to do it, meaning you haven't put a stop to it. So how do we change that? How do you shift this person's mindset to advocate for yourself and let it be known that your boundaries and your standards are actually not up for negotiation? It means that it's now time for you to show up in such a way that whoever you are interacting with recognizes that your standards, that your boundaries, they are not emotional statements that you have made or emotional declarations that you have shared with them. You must operate in such a way that they know that your boundaries, your standards, they are operational decisions, meaning they govern how you show up and what you expect and what you will and will not tolerate. So as you enforce your standards and you enforce your boundaries, you must do so calmly, predictably, and consistently. So be calm, be predictable, be consistent. Because standards aren't dramatic And standards aren't reactive, they're just executed. So I need you to remember that in the moment that you feel tension because your standard or your boundary is being tested, that is not a moment or the time for you to retreat or back down. That is the moment and that is the time that your standard or your boundary is simply being tested. And that is your signal, that is your sign to stand firm, because relational authority is built on what you do next. Now, if this conversation sharpened your perspective, gave you some new insight about how standards are actually built in relationships, then turn on your notifications, because every episode or life lesson, as I like to say, that I share here is designed to strengthen how you navigate conflict with composure and precision. I'm CE Sam, telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you can change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.